I, Creon, have just come into power as king of Thebes. Polynices and Eteocles have killed each other in battle, and the next person to come into power was me. Since the people of Thebes didn't know me, I had to give a speech on how I would earn their trust. At first I said, I am aware, of course, that no ruler can expect complete loyalty from his subjects until he has been tested in office. To get people to respect me, I had to implement a strict law that would have an extremely harsh penalty if someone were to break it. Unfortunately, someone broke my rule and buried Polynices, as I instructed not to do. My law was that if anyone was to bury Polynices, they would be sentenced to death. Somebody buried him, and now I have to track down the person who committed the crime. I brought in Sentry to question and help me find out who did it. There was no evidence at the scene to give me a clear idea at who committed the crime. My job became very easy when Sentry brought in Antigone. Antigone confessed to burying him, and she said she would rather die with him buried longer than leave Polynices unburied.
The time has come to have Antigone serve her punishment. Antigone's sister Ismene claimed that this was her idea and she helped commit the crime. I was not fooled by her words. I have decided that I am not going to kill Ismene for what she has claimed she has done. I'm not going to punish her at all. On the flip side, Antigone has to be punished for what she has done. I swear you'll regret this superior tone of yours. You are the empty one. To do my son a minor favor, I made the choice to have Antigone's caged and suffering for the rest of her life. Instead of dying right now, I'm going to keep her locked up and only give her enough food to survive. The only thing Antigone can do is sit and pray to the gods that they will forgive her. Once I have done that, I will regain the respect of my people.
Today has been an awful day. A prophet named Tiresias came to talk to me about my future. He warned me that someone I love is going to die in the near future. The time is not far off when you shall pay corpse for corpse, flesh for your own flesh. You have thrust the child of this world into living night. I didn't listen to him at first, and I truly regret it. When I arrived at Antigone's tomb, I found Haman with Antigone's corpse in his hand. Antigone had killed herself, and Haman wanted to avenge her. Oh, my son, I come to you on my knees. But Haman spat in his face. He said not a word, staring, and suddenly drew his sword and lunged. Creon shrank back. The blade missed, and the boy, desperate against himself, drove it half its length into his own side and fell. When I returned, I found my wife dead. She killed herself because of me.
Ever since our brothers Eteocles and Polynices killed each other over being king of Thebes, everything has been different. Creon is the new king, and my sister is turning into a psycho, and I'm trying to be a peacemaker. Antigone has always had big hopes and opinions. She is never afraid to speak what is on her mind. But today, I thought she was completely insane. Since Creon became king, he established some new rules. He declared that Polynices was not allowed to be buried because he tried to attack Thebes, but Eteocles can. Ever since Antigone heard about that, she was outraged. So today, while we were in our rooms, she comes up to me and says, Ismene, we have to bury Polynices. He is our brother too, just like Eteocles. We cannot break the rules of our king. Are you trying to get killed? Sadly, my idiotic sister is going along with the plan. I tried to convince her out of it so many times, but of course, she has her own mind and can make her own decisions. The last I heard from her was around noon when she told me she was getting prepared to do her dirty work. What have I done wrong? Well, now that it's late, I think I will go out and search for her. Why must I always be right? I ended up in the castle of Creon's, where there my sister and the king of Thebes stand. The first thing that comes out of my mouth was I was a part of it. Antigone turns around in shame and says, no, you have nothing to do with it. You tried to warn me, but I didn't listen. Let me take my consequences alone. Tears ran down my face. We were always thought to be there for our family in need. Isn't that what I'm doing? I felt like my words never matter. I turned to Antigone. Tears run down her red cheeks as she says, go. This has nothing to do with you. Those are the last words I heard of her when I was vacated out by the guard. I love my sister dearly, but why must she be so stupid, so fearless? The guard walks me home and tells me to stay. I haven't heard from Antigone in hours, and before you know it, I get the sense that my sister's dead.
Today was probably the worst day ever. Both my brothers couldn't agree to share the throne. This resulted in war, and they both had killed themselves. Creon had made a law that traitors cannot get buried, but my other brother, Eteocles, was praised and had a military burial. I believe that is wrong. If you honor one brother, you have to honor the other. Our king Creon made a law that no one could mourn or bury my brother Polynices. I disagree. Later that night, I decided to talk to my sister Ismene about what we should do. My opinion is to bury him, but Ismene, she had thought different. She said, "Bury him. You have just said the new laws forbids it. Think of the danger. Think of what Creon will do." I stormed off, angered at my sister, so disappointed that she didn't want to help me protect my brother's integrity. I don't care if Creon finds out. He needs to know that my family matters to me more than anything.
Last night I buried my brother and got caught. They brought me to Creon to speak to him. When he asked me if I had buried Polynices, I didn't deny it. Creon was enraged. He said that Polynices was a traitor, and that Eteocles would be upset with me. I knew Eteocles would have wanted me to do this. He may be mad with Polynices, but we are family, and family knows what is right and wrong, no matter if they are angry or not. And yet you dare defy law. Creon had said to me, he's going to punish me for breaking the law, but it wasn't a law that God would have proclaimed. At this point, I was so enraged that I said it to him. It was not God's proclamation. That final justice that rules the world below makes no such laws. If what I did deserves death, then death I shall receive. I had no desire to live with guilt and evil. Creon told me that there was nothing he wanted more than my death, for to him that would give me everything.
I begged him to kill me because I did not want to hear what he had to say to me. So I responded back with, "All these men would praise me were their lips not frozen shut with fear of you." Ismene didn't want me to suffer alone, so she admitted to helping me even when she didn't do anything. Creon had made up his mind to punish us by putting us in a vault to die a slow death. I overheard the guards talking about Haman and Creon were in a brawl earlier, because Haman was defending me and Creon didn't like that. "So, your concern? In a public brawl with your father?" I was flattered that Haman stuck up for me, but scared of Creon's response.
Later that night, the guards brought me to the vault. Creon had let Ismene go because her hands were clean and mine weren't. I got to the vault and it was dark. There was no food. I was scared. When the guards had left me, I had nowhere to go. I was scared and I knew I wasn't going to survive, so I hung myself, and the rest is all misery.
Oedipus and Jocasta. This is the first time they had met, as they had been estranged when Oedipus was born. Now, Oedipus had ended up killing his father, marrying his mother, and they bore 4 children. And this led to a war, which would end up with Eteocles and Polynices, their 2 boys, dead. Eteocles died defending the city, while Polynices tried to conquer it for himself, as he was tired of sharing power with his brother. Now, the new king, Creon, had decreed that Eteocles would have a full military funeral with all honors that came with it, and Polynices would be left to the dogs and receive no burial. Now, when Antigone heard this, she went to bury him, as she loved her brother. She was captured while she was burying him, though, and was sentenced to death by Creon. When Creon talked to her, he was very upset. He sentenced her to prison instead of killing her. This was mainly because his son Hymen was betrothed to her and did not want to see his beloved die. While Antigone was trapped in her prison, she ended up hanging herself and was eventually discovered by Hymen, who would later kill himself. Now the prophet Tiresias told Creon that this was not a wise idea, as the people loved Antigone and thought not burying Polynices was wrong, no matter what he did. Now, Creon decided to bury Polynices, but when he entered the vault with Hymen, he had discovered Antigone dead, which then Hymen killed himself. When Creon returned home, his wife Eurydice had heard of Hymen's death, and she ended up killing herself, and thus Hymen's entire family was dead because he was too arrogant to admit that he was wrong.
Today my brothers Eteocles and Polynices died, each having been killed by each other's sword. I heard rumors of Creon decreeing Eteocles, who died as a man, should die fighting for his country, and is to be buried with full military honors, with all the ceremony that is usual when the greatest heroes die. But his brother Polynices, who broke his exile to come back with fire and sword, is to have no burial. No man is to touch him or say the least prayer. I have decided to go against Creon's proclamation and bury my brother. Today I buried Polynices properly and honorably. I had gone to the fields early in the morning with the burial lines and knelt beside Polynices and prayed for him to appease his ghost. Then, as I prayed, Creon's guards had rushed towards me and arrested me. I at first went peacefully with them, but I grew more angry as they dragged me towards my cell. As I was sitting in my cell, awaiting my death, I heard rumors from the guards that Haman went to Creon and told him to change his ways, saying, "I do not believe that you alone can be right. The man who thinks that, the man who maintains that only he has the power, a man like that, when you know him, turns out empty." Later, I heard rumors again from the guards of Tiresias the prophet going to speak to Creon, telling him to change his ways again. He said, "You shall pay back corpse for corpse, flesh for flesh, your own flesh. And curses will be heard at you from far cities, grieving for sons unburied, left to rot before the walls of Thebes." I feel Creon is not going to listen to Tiresias, however, and continue his arrogance.
"Lead me away. I have been rash and foolish. I have killed my sons and wife. My comfort lies here, dead.